Hi everybody, my name is Jerome Gabriel and I'm a faculty member at the University of St. Francis in Joliet, Illinois in the Recreation and Sport Management Department. Today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about becoming a professional in the outdoor recreation industry, what it looks like, what steps to take, and mainly when you're looking at choosing some sort of program that would help develop you into the type of leader you're going to need to be, what are some of the key questions to be able to ask? Hopefully, even if you're not somebody who's necessarily interested in going into outdoor recreation, the questions that I'm going to be talking about asking really could apply to any major or any sort of program you might be interested in going into. So, before we jump in, just a brief discussion about who I am. So again, I mentioned my name is Jerome Gabriel. I'm a faculty member at the University of St. Francis, and my background is outdoor recreation. I've been working in the outdoor industry for almost about 20 years now. I started off as a professional guide out in the Canadian Rockies. Did that for a few years, taking people up mountains, down rivers, through forests, caves, rappelling over cliffs. It was a lot of fun. After that, I moved to Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio, where I was the outdoor program director there for about a decade. So, again, my job was whitewater rafting, canoeing, kayaking, rock climbing, caving, rappelling, and getting to take college students out on all of those trips. Then in the fall of 2014, I came to the University of St. Francis, and I've been teaching there ever since. So I've had a lot of experience in the outdoors, gotten to meet a lot of amazing outdoor leaders, and now I get to teach the next generation of outdoor leaders, which is something I'm really excited about doing. Now, when we talk about working in the outdoor recreation field, remember what I'm talking about is not just working outside. I'm really talking about a field in which we take people out and we help them interact with the natural environment. Whether, again, that's rock climbing, whitewater rafting, backpacking, but it's not just being in the outdoors, but it's a field where our desire is to help people interact with the outdoors in some physical way. So whether that's hiking through it, paddling through it, or maybe even climbing over it. And again, anyone can do this. It's not a field that's limited to a certain group of people or type of person or even experience level. As long as you're somebody who enjoys being outside and likes working with people, this is a field that potentially could work for you. Now, if you happen to watch my other video, I already went through a lot of the careers that are available in the field. So I'm not really going to go over those too much at this point. But just know if there's something you are interested in the outdoors, then you might want to start the process of getting yourself ready to enter into that field. Now, if you are somebody who's in high school watching this video right now, we're going to start with you all and talk about what some of the steps are that you can look at going into this field. So what can you do right now? Well, the number one thing is just start getting outside. Spend time in the outdoors. Find places locally around you, whether that is a state park, a national forest, a county forest preserve, or even just a family's wooded lot. Spend time getting in the outdoors and make yourself comfortable being out there. Comfortable for extended periods of time, comfortable getting dirty, comfortable climbing over things. Just develop a sense of comfort in being in natural spaces. So that's definitely the first thing that can be done. Once you get beyond that, now we start looking at trying to develop yourself as a professional. Well, one of the first steps is probably your summer job. So what sort of things do you normally do as a summer job? Are you looking at working in fast food or looking retail? Well, maybe consider looking at jobs that are going to give you some more experience working in the outdoors. Whether that is maybe being a camp counselor for the summer. I did the camp counselor thing for a number of years. I really enjoyed it. I thought it gave me a good footing in working in the outdoors. Or maybe locally you have something like a county forest preserve or a state park or maybe even a national park. At the national level, there are a number of programs for 15 to 18-year-olds that give them work experience while working on conservation projects in the outdoors. And these are all great opportunities for people to be able to get outside and earn a little bit of income during the summer, but most importantly, get that experience working outdoors. Once you start gaining that experience, you want to start developing an idea of what sort of field you're really interested in going into. If you watched my other video on careers in the outdoors, you'll know that there are a lot of opportunities out there. So start doing some research on them. What are the ones that are most interesting to you? and then start looking at universities or opportunities to develop yourself the skills you're going to need to work in those fields. So that's what we're really going to spend the majority of the time on here as we look forward into developing yourself as an outdoor professional. To do that, there's really a certain number of questions you should probably be asking. And if you are, again, somebody who's not even interested in working in the outdoors, this is still a good list of questions that you should be considering as you move forward in looking at your own personal careers. So questions like, how will I be learning? Where will I be learning? When will I be learning? How will I be connected to the greater industry in general? Who am I going to be learning from? And how will I be connected locally at the university itself throughout their program? Am I just going to be a number in this whole process? So what I want to do is go through each of these questions individually and look a little bit at what sort of process you should be taking and what sort of questions you should be asking. Now, given, I'm going to be a little biased because I'm from the University of St. Francis and I teach outdoor recreation to students who want to work professionally in this field. So I'm going to give you a lot of examples of what I do to teach students, but these could be applied anywhere else as well. Too far. There we go. So the first question you want to ask is, how am I going to be learning? Well, imagine you are in your first job interview. You've sat across the table from an employer and you slide your resume across the table, and that employer looks at it and says, wow, looks like some good experiences here. So you've got some good classes, your grades are good, maybe an award or two. Oh, look, it says here you took a leadership class. Can you tell me a little bit about how you'd apply that? Well, if your leadership class took place in a classroom teaching out of a textbook, then you might have to stare across the table and say, well, I wrote a really good paper on leadership once. I have a really good grasp of the theory. Okay, well, that's really not all that impressive. For me, I teach students in an outdoor leadership class. It's our RSTM 200 class. And to do that, I actually spend 6 weeks teaching the students everything they need to know about outdoor leadership, whether it's the interpersonal skills, technical skills, and then we load everybody into a vehicle and we drive 13 hours north up to the boundary waters in northern Minnesota. And when we're there, we put the students in canoes, we give them their maps, give them all their equipment. I sit down in the back of one of the boats and say, go. And for 8 days, the students completely lead the trip. So that means if they start paddling across the lake in the wrong direction, I let them do it. If that means that they set up camp in a site that probably is going to have a lot of wind and insects, well, I let them do it. Because it's okay for leaders to make mistakes as long as those leaders are learning from them. If the group starts having issues during the trip, that's going to happen, but I let the student leaders do it because the students are in charge of the entire experience. Because that student, 4 years from now, is going to sit down across the table from an employer, give them their resume, and when that employer looks at it and says, okay, some good grades, maybe an award or two, hey, you took this leadership class, can you tell me how you would apply that? Well, that student is now going to look across the table and say, oh, absolutely. Let me tell you about the boundary waters. Let me tell you about leading my peers, about goal setting, about group management, about risk management, about logistics and planning. And that sounds a whole lot more impressive than, well, I wrote a really good paper once. So the very first question you should ask of any program is, how am I going to be learning? Am I simply going to be learning out of a textbook for 4 years, or are there actually going to be opportunities for me to apply the learning in the field that I want to go into? The next question is, where am I going to be learning at? And so I already showed you one example of a classroom that I use, and that's the Boundary Waters up in northern Minnesota. And this video is showing you another example of one of the classrooms that I frequently use, and that's our challenge course at the University of St. Francis. So all of my students, when they go through the program, they are trained as facilitators on this challenge course. And the video you're watching is of the entire freshman class at the University of St. Francis being brought out to the course over the course of an entire day. So this is only one of the groups. But then my students do all of the facilitation for that day. So they're taught how to manage groups of people, how to set goals, how to inspire people, how to encourage them. And again, it's because of the classroom environment that they're given. This isn't your typical classroom. There are no walls here. We're not talking about fluorescent lighting and projectors and computer screens. What we're talking about is a real-world application of the material. So again, when this student sits across the table from an employer, and that employer says, we really need somebody who knows how to work with groups of people and how to lead groups of people. My students look across the table and say, oh, absolutely. I was trained on being a challenge course facilitator. I know how to manage groups of people. I know how to set goals. I know how to plan, and I know how to inspire groups to work together. And it's all because of the classroom environment that they were given. This is a unique space and a great place for them to learn. So, second question should be, where am I going to be learning? The third question should be, when are you going to be learning? So, even the most adventurous student, taking 18 credit hours a semester, means that there's about 18 hours a week that they're going to be sitting in class. Well, there's a lot more time outside of class. So, are you only going to be learning about your particular field, in this case outdoor recreation, during your class time? Or are there going to be opportunities for you to be able to apply that knowledge outside of the classroom? So the video that you're watching here is of our Postigo whitewater rafting trip that we take every year with our recreation club. At University of St. Francis, our student-led recreation club is an opportunity for students to be able to get additional outdoor experience outside of their classes. In fact, a student who comes to the University of St. Francis as a freshman starts off with the recreation club their first semester. By the time they graduate, between the recreation club trips and the trips taken through classes, they're going to have about 100 days of leadership in the field already, which is a great thing for them to be able to put on their resume. However, if the students were only learning inside their normal class period, they wouldn't get these opportunities. So on a trip like this, these students get to lead a whitewater rafting trip. So in the classroom, they learn about leadership, and then they apply it on this trip. In the classroom, they learn about risk management, and then they get to go out and apply it on this trip. In the classroom, they learn about logistics and planning and group management, and then they get to apply it on a trip like this. Now at St. Francis, I try to make sure that our students get a wide range of opportunities. So sure, whitewater rafting is a lot of fun, but earlier in the presentation, you saw pictures of people rappelling into caves and standing in a cave. That was our spring break trip this past year. The year before, we did a backpacking trip through the Escalante Grand Staircase in Utah. And the year before that, we did 35 miles on the Appalachian Trail. So my goal is to get students a broad spectrum of opportunities outside of their normal classroom. Because if they're only taught stuff during their class period, well, then they're going to miss out on a lot of the opportunities that they have to learn. So you want to look at your programs and see the next question and an answer for it of where or when are you going to be learning. The next question you should be thinking about is, how are you going to be connected when you graduate? So if you want to be a professional in the outdoor recreation field, and really in any field in general, you've probably heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Because when you go to graduate, you're going to want to have connections that exist in that field and help you to manage those connections. So how are you going to get those? Well, for our program, what we do is we give students the opportunity to network with professionals at a large number of conferences. So the Midwest Outdoor Leadership Conference is actually a conference that I help start. But this is a conference where our students get to network with 120 to 150 other students and professionals from all over the Midwest. Regionally, we also have our Illinois Park and Recreation Association annual conference, where they can network with up to 3,000 professionals from all over the state. These are opportunities for those students to get connected with people who can get them jobs when they graduate. So even though you have the best degree and you have the most training, if nobody knows who you are, it's going to be really hard for you to land that next step in the process, that next job. So not only get the degree, but also make sure that you're connecting with people who are professionals out there in the field to prepare you for that next step in your career. The next question you should be thinking about is, who are you going to be learning from? Now, you've already met me. I've already explained to you kind of who I am. At the University of St. Francis, we've got a variety of faculty members. In fact, in our department, even though we have different fields, we actually are all really interested in outdoor recreation. So Dr. Sklar is our recreational therapist. He focuses on the adventure therapy side of things, giving students opportunities to work with individuals with disabilities in the outdoors. He has a really strong connection with the National Sports Center for the Disabled. Dr. Manu is our sports management professional. But in addition, she also assists me in the instruction of all of our expedition courses, whether that's the canoeing trip up in the Boundary Waters or a week of caving down in Kentucky. So even though we have various fields, we all have a lot of experience in them. And most importantly, you're not learning from somebody who is just teaching you directly out of a textbook. When you're looking for who you're going to be training from, you want to know that those people have some significant experience behind them. You don't really want to necessarily learn from somebody who's gone bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctorate, and now they're standing in front of you in the classroom. For instance, when I'm teaching a class on risk management in the outdoors, and a student asks me, okay, I understand why we want to use bear bags in a situation like that, but why? Well, my response to them is not, well, if you turn to page 235 in your textbook, you'll see that. I say no. Let me tell you about this experience I had where students did not do this properly. And then I can explain to them from personal experience because I've lived it. So when you're looking at who you're going to be learning from, what sort of experience do they have? Have they been a professional in the field that you're interested in going into? Do they have those professional connections? Do they have that professional experience? So that way you're not just learning out of a textbook, but you're also learning from somebody who really knows what it's like to work in that field. Finally, you should ask, how am I going to be connected? Am I just going to be a number in this whole process, or am I actually going to be able to get personal one-on-one experience? Well, for our program, we tend to use a lot of social media to stay connected, whether it's our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube channels. These are all opportunities for our students to remain connected with us, and for us to remain connected not just with our current students, but also with our alumni and students who are already out there in the field doing amazing things. And this is a way that not only do our students get to connect with what we're doing right now, but our students can also connect with people who are out there in the industry who might be able to land them their next internship or maybe even that first job. Well, so how effective is something like this? How effective is it to stay connected via social media when we're such a small campus? Well, in 2019, the University of St. Francis competed in a nationwide competition called the AOR Campus Challenge. It was a challenge to try to determine who is the most outdoorsy school in the country. Well, University of St. Francis, we're pretty small. We've only got about 1,200 undergraduate students, and we sit in Joliet, Illinois. Not exactly what you might consider a hub of outdoor recreation. But because of the experiences we can give students, because of the connectedness that we were able to give students, in 2019, as you can see, we were actually the national champions. We were the #1 outdoor school in the country for our division. And the #1 outdoor student in the country, you can see Kaylee there, she came from the University of St. Francis as well. So how does a university with only 1,200 students located in Joliet, Illinois become one of the most outdoorsy schools in the entire country? Well, because we stay connected with our students, because we help our students stay connected with others who are already out there in the field, and we offer them the sort of opportunities they need to be professionals. So hopefully what's happened is through this presentation, you've gotten some idea of some of the steps you should be taking or thinking about taking as you want to develop yourself into a professional in the outdoors. Again, think about how you're going to be learning, where you're going to be learning, who you're going to be learning from, what those experiences are going to be like. Do you have experiences outside of the classroom? And these are all questions that you should be asking of any program, regardless of if you want to go into outdoor recreation or not. But for those of you who are interested in going into the outdoors, of course, if you want more information about what we do at the University of St. Francis, you're more than welcome to contact me. So I hope you all have a great day, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.